Team, we've got a great show for you today. Today we've got Larry Levine, and Larry is the author of Selling from the Heart, How Your Authentic Self Sells You. Just a great book, great read, a lot of great expertise that Larry's brought to the table because he spent literally almost 3 decades in the photocopy industry. So when you think of a successful career as a salesperson or sales leader in that competitive industry, some might say a very commoditized industry, the only thing that differentiates in the marketplace is how well you sell. And these days, that's also highly applicable for almost anybody listening to this. You know, no product sells itself. It's actually the salesperson that can make the key difference. How well you sell can be your competitive differentiation. Really clear messaging today from Larry in this great conversation where he shares that we're all in the people business and the relationship building business. Regardless of technology, we're in the people business and the relationship building business. He and I talk a lot about that authenticity. How do we get comfortable being ourselves in front of clients and prospects today? We might be new to sales, we might be new to business and selling into a CIO. How do you get comfortable in that conversation so that you can have that authentic sort of engagement? We talk a lot about today, very helpful tips about our existing client base. So no matter who we are, we want to grow through new logos. We want new business. But part of the path there is actually really understanding your existing clients. The more we help and support our existing clients, it opens doors to new logos and new clients. So what do we do outside of engaging them? Hey, when there's a new deal on the table or when there's a problem or when we do a flyby, what else do we do? What's the target? Larry does a great thing at the end of this podcast. He asks us all a couple of questions to think about regarding our most important client, however we define that. And he wants to know how well we know them. What are their top priorities over the next 90 days? What are some of the issues and challenges to getting there? I think it's a good exercise to think about regarding the most important clients that we're working with today. Folks, I really enjoyed the energy, the enthusiasm, the positivity of Larry. I think you're going to enjoy this podcast as well. And if you do, please like and subscribe to the Selling Well podcast because that really matters to us. Please enjoy my discussion with Larry Levine. Hey, Larry, welcome to the show. This is a long time coming, and I'm so thrilled to finally meet you.
Oh, this has been more than a long time coming. It's so awesome. I'm so thankful to be here. Thank you for having me.
So today we're talking about selling from the heart, how your authentic self sells you. And but you've got 2 books. Very, very successful books out. The second book being Selling in a Post-Trust World. And that's obviously really interesting. There's a real connection between the two, of course. But today we're going to start with selling from the heart. But maybe, Larry, just to kick things off, maybe give us that kind of short story of your professional career, which I loved because there's some alignment here. Tell us about how you got to where you are today.
I've been looking forward to this because Mark, we're kindred spirits. We are so kindred spirits. So I'm in Southern California. I've grown up in Southern California, just north of Los Angeles. My whole entire sales career was in the Office Technology channel.
Love it.
In other words, I sold copiers. I was business partners in several copier dealerships. I have toner in my blood. I spent from the late 80s to, 2015. Selling copiers and all the peripheral supplies that go with it. So I've been around the block a time or two in sales. I always say, you know, if you can make your way selling photocopiers in a highly commoditized market, you're worth your weight in gold out in the marketplace. So I just bring a passion for sales, but selling something where I always said, it's a race to the bottom. God bless all the people that are still in it. It's a race to the bottom in a very commoditized market. But I just figured out how to make it work by bringing my authentic self to the forefront and building relationships and bringing meaningful value.
Well, you know, first of all, so many things to unpack, but just on the fun front. So many of the folks who listen to this podcast know I started in that industry and I loved it. So my first corporate job was selling big photocopiers for Kodak.
Yeah.
And you know, first of all, that company had one of the nicest company cultures I've ever come across even since. It was just such a lovely company there's lots of business cases on Kodak now that they had a tough time
Sure.
cannibalizing, their core business, which was traditional film. So they basically got disrupted by those folks in digital. But they had a really great marketing education center. We got hired to sell photocopiers. We got sent away to copier school. 3 months before we even met a client because we were going through the educational process. It was competitive, Larry. So, we were in Rochester for that period of time. And, every week, a few people got touched on the shoulder because they weren't making it. They got sent home. It was over. So, but just a wonderful formal education. It was a little heavy on product education, not as much on sales education and sales strategy, but it was Miller Hyman
Sure.
back in the day. And you're right. There it was even back then there was not a lot of differentiation in terms of products. But the reality of it is today, for everybody in SaaS out there who thinks they've got a unique and different product, it's only a matter of time. There's nothing unique and different anymore. Everything can be replicated. So, learning to sell a product that could be quite similar to something else, you had to rely on your sales skills to be the difference. And that's exactly where we are today, a couple of decades later.
No, it's 100%. You're so right. I enjoy saying this. I go, what's forever old is forever new. The things that we were doing back in the day, when I say back in the day, when I started in the late 80s, isn't it interesting? It has all come
Yeah.
full circle.
Yeah.
All the tech that's out there, and I'm not here to say any negative things about tech, none whatsoever. Tech is wonderful if it's facilitating our relationship and how we've built ours. But it gets down to the very core of the subtitle of Selling from the Heart. It's how your authentic self sells you. And by the way, and this is my belief, Mark, everybody's in a commoditized market. Somebody's always going to come out with something that's bigger and badder than yours, that's going to be priced differently than yours, all these kinds of things. However, what's unique is you. And we
Yes.
got to be able to sell our authentic self as the key differentiator and not so much lean on product. And I've always told those people in sales, we got to step in front of our company and in front of our product and not hide behind it.
Oh, so well said. So we were laughing at the beginning, team, Larry and I, because I put a post on LinkedIn a little while back, which was my original business card for that first job.
It was, I saw it.
And beautiful head of hair, young guy. I was so excited to be a part of that company. And it's funny with those posts, they go crazy. In terms of response and comments, it's the personal ones that actually get the response. But I really want to touch on this authentic self because, and this is really something I pulled from the book that I love so much, Larry. That guy in that picture, the Kodak business cards put their picture on it. He was not authentic. I was not my authentic self. For some reason, I thought there was, private, personal party Mark, with all my buddies and all the craziness we did. And there was lots of craziness. And then suddenly when I was selling copiers in downtown Toronto, I had the suit on and I felt like there had to be this kind of veneer of being perfect. And I was anything but perfect. But it felt like that whole personal thing I just wanted to keep parked somewhere because to me it seemed kind of crazy, the whole lifestyle of being a young person like that. And I think it really came across because I was just too uptight all the time. Like I just didn't feel comfortable or confident. Maybe it's part of self-esteem and so forth. But you also talk a lot about that in the book.
Yeah, you know what's interesting? I'm sitting here listening to what you're saying, and I just had flashbacks to my very first year selling copiers. And I write about in the beginning of Selling from the Heart is I was trying to be somebody I wasn't because back then, like you went to school and all that. I didn't have the luxury of spending 3 months at a school and getting that sophisticated education on how to sell the products I was selling. I was in an independent side of life where it was up to that dealer principal owner as far as how they trained and coached their salespeople.
Right. The dealer network. Right.
Yeah, 100%. So it's just so interesting. I spent a week watching, now I'm dating myself, but you'll get this. There'll be people listening who'll get this. I was watching VHS tapes, and after a week, miraculously, my business cards were done. I got my business cards, and then I had to go out in the field and start cold calling. And once I brought the cards back, I had
Tough.
to start following this script, and then I would start writing out with salespeople. Right? Somehow, something tells me that's still happening today. However, where I latched onto this is as I was trying to mirror and mimic scripts and what other salespeople were doing, I lost my identity because I was trying to mirror and mimic the top salespeople because those were the people I was doing field write outs with. So all of a
Yeah.
sudden I'm like going, okay, and I'm a young, impressionable 20 something year old. And I go, I want to be like Mark, right? Because Mark's successful. He's got the big corner office and right, he's got the nice car. So
Nice
I'm writing
car.
100%. I'm writing out with him.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden I start mirroring his mannerisms. I start using his vocabulary. And guess what? It wasn't working. And I went
Right.
6 months before I ever sold anything
Yeah.
until I finally said, enough's enough. I throw my hands up and say, there's got to be a better way. And the better way is what I innately knew all along.
Right.
Focus on the other person. Don't focus on the product. Ask really great questions. Bring curiosity to the forefront.
Yeah.
It was innate in me already. I knew that. But I
Well,
was mirror and masking everybody else, and I expand upon that selling from the heart. That's why I believe if your authentic self, if you can open that cupboard and find out who you are, bring that to the forefront, don't second guess it. That's what people connect to.
well, it makes so much sense. And you and I having this conversation now, Larry, we have a little bit of experience between us where we've had this
Yeah.
validated, and maybe along the way, there's a little bit of, I don't care anymore. I am who I am, right? So
Yeah.
I can't, I can't. It's not that I don't care, but I have no other option. This is who I am now. And for me, it probably happened maybe almost 10 years after that first job,
Yeah.
a little less, where I just started relaxing and being myself, and then but being the best version of myself, a well-trained version of myself or a well-prepared version of myself for a call. But always, I never knew really what else to do on a sales call except ask questions, because I never really wanted to be the person pitching or
Yeah.
all that kind of stuff. It just didn't suit me. But I think I love your advice as to, there's so many young people, amazing young people, leaving college, university right now and going into professional B2B sales. In fact, our pal from Harvard, Frank Cespedes, who's written, 9 amazing books. One of the most recent is called Sales Management That Works, but he's just fantastic, a professor at Harvard. And in that book, he says, if you graduate college or university today, you got a 1 in 2 chance of being in a professional sales job at some point in your career. So Daniel Pink, everybody's
Yep.
in sales.
Yep.
How do we get people comfortable listening today, BDRs, SDRs, being their authentic self and knowing kind of that line, right? You see a lot of these internet platitudes and all of these things talking about, different things people do. How do you get comfortable being on that call? You're speaking to a CIO and you're 2 years out of school, scared to death and thinking the CIO understands so much that you don't.
Oh, I am so glad we are having this conversation. Much needed. Thank you for bringing it to the forefront because I see this. It runs rampant. And I'll share a story because I'm going to answer it through a story.
Please.
I remember the transition between, and I think this will play out in what you had just said. I remember the transition from analog copiers to digital. I remember that I was right smack in the middle of that transition. And it scared me like none other because I'm not the most technically inclined person. And now all of a sudden, I'm going to start having conversations with technically oriented people, and I'm not technically oriented. What's going to start happening? And I realized real fast, I didn't have to be the smartest person in the room.
Yeah.
I just needed to understand how to facilitate a business conversation.
Yes.
Young people today, you know how to use tech. You've grown up with tech. What we need to be coaching and training our youth of today around is how to have confident, comfortable business conversations.
Yes.
And when they can do that, they start raising their confidence and their believability in themselves. They get scared, right? And I sometimes I feel sorry for them is they get scared talking to somebody 2 times their age, maybe sometimes 3 times their age, because they don't want to look like they don't know anything. You don't have
Yeah.
to. You just have to know how to facilitate that conversation. And the way you do it is possibly start reading and listening to the things that these people read and listen
Yes.
to, and
Yes.
just bring up some of these things in conversation. And then whatever framework that you're asked to make calls around, make it your own. Make
Yes.
it your own and watch what starts to happen. You might say, well, this is really simple stuff. It kind of is, but we overcomplicate the art of having a conversation because I believe there our youth of today are so fixated and focused on the conversation and moving it to the next step that they lose track of. I just have to have a conversation with this person
Yeah.
in order to move it to the next step. And if I can't engage in that healthy conversation, I can't even get it to the next step.
It's so well said, Larry. I think that, you focus on that outcome and you feel a bit of that pressure and go, boy, I've got 3 conversations today. Let's say I'm a BDR and
Sure.
SDR. Boy, I got to get one of these to book a meeting with Larry next week. And so I'm in this conversation and all I'm thinking is book the meeting, book the meeting, book the meeting. And I'm just, again, authentic self. I'm not in the moment. And I'm not making the conversation about them. I'm making the conversation about me. And I love that idea of just say, listen, let's just have a great conversation with someone. But there is work that we can do prior to that conversation to say, we might have some insight and knowledge and value because our company and my teammates deal with other clients. We know what's going on with them. We can help make sense
Sure.
for some of the things going on in the marketplace. And then back to the book and just being authentic, like actually caring about what's going on with the business, earning the right for that conversation with research and some preparation. And then one of the things we coach on, I'm certainly interested to hear your opinion. We don't mind doing the odd, workshop with a company saying, let's just do a mini MBA.
Yeah.
I think sometimes the world of business seems so complex to people. If you haven't lived a bit and seen a few businesses and been at a couple different levels, but at the end of the day, everybody makes a product or service. They sell it to somebody. Who is it? How do they sell it to somebody? And how do they expect to compete and win in the marketplace? And particularly if they're a publicly traded company, they explain to the universe their strategic priorities in 1-syllable words. These are the 3 things we're trying to do this year. And then, by the way, these were the 3 things we tried to do last year and how we did against them. It's kind of reading the first 8 pages of 10K report and forget the P&L and statement of cash flows and balance sheets. The other 200 pages don't matter that much. Just take the chairman's message and the president's message, and you can kind of get a sense for what's happening with that business.
Oh, this is so good. You'll get a kick out of this. I always ask this. I ask this to executives, but I also ask it to salespeople as well. And this ties into really the underlying theme of selling from the heart and selling in a post-trust world. Is if I asked executives, are your salespeople in the people business? Forget about your products and all that. Just set your products aside for a moment.
Yeah.
Are your salespeople in the people business and relationship building business? Simple yes or no. That's all I'm looking for. And they shake their head up and down like you are. Yes, my salespeople are in the people business and relationship building business. I said, okay, fair enough. I agree, by the way. Then here's my question. As the executive, the person who's steering this corporate ship, what are you doing and what are your leadership team doing to coach and train Your salespeople on people skills and relationship building skills, and they're the profit and generating and revenue generating arm of your company. How are you doing this in a world that unfortunately doesn't view salespeople through a trustworthy lens?
Yeah.
And I hear crickets, and I hear that with salespeople as well. And that's the big mission at Selling from the Heart. And then with selling in a post-trust world is if we elevate the people skills and relationship building skills, some might put a little air quotes around soft skills, but those drive hard dollars in today's day and age.
Yeah.
Everyone does great product training, sales skills training. I'm not here to take a stab at that. The opportunity to increase revenue and profit is elevate the people and relationship building skills of your salespeople.
I completely agree. So I completely agree. And again, back to that, the photocopy world, the joke of that post where you know, my wife had, Donna had found that picture and I put it up there. I literally was this demo king
Yeah.
for North America. And I got all these awards and I couldn't sell
Yeah.
because I hadn't connected the dots between forget the demo. How does this thing pay for itself?
Yeah.
You know, in a print shop, and how do the features actually tie to an outcome that that print shop runner or owner or that company needs? You know, what do we actually do for the company that they care about? They don't care about me in the demo, as perfect as it was. And by the way, I love the VHS. We used to record ourselves on VHS.
Totally
To
hilarious.
watch the test. It was like an actor. It was,
Yeah.
you know, it was fantastic. But I think this thing back to the people skills. I believe there's this kind of common sense revolution taking place a bit in sales today. And it's driven, ironically, again, driven by technology because AI will take down the pitching, the cajoling, all that's all gone. And so really what's going to exist a few years from now is back to what it was back in the day. You have to have, you know, consultative skills, problem solving skills, you know, curiosity, the ability to make a connection, the ability to connect the dots, the ability to identify problems or communicate problems to a buyer they don't even know they have. It was that back in the day. And then we had this whole thing where technology sort of got in the way. And then suddenly we said, just demo a product. How is demoing a product ever sell anything? Imagine if you tried to demo Microsoft Excel.
Yeah.
Everybody uses Excel. We use 3% of the functionality of Excel. Excel's a relational database. You can do solver. You know, the finance people can make it sing. Most of us use it as a spreadsheet program to do basic functional math for our home budgeting.
Guilty.
Yeah, right? But the people who really know, but we wouldn't demo Excel with solver. 90% of the world doesn't know what solver is. They don't know it's a relational database. So it's really saying, hey, what do you want to do? I want to
Yeah.
do math faster, you know, basic math faster. So I think there's this opportunity out there. I love this about, you know, you talk about the soft skills and you talk about what are you doing? I like that question, Larry, to CEOs saying, what are you doing, you know, to enable your teams with those relationship building skills, the ability to make a connection. And when they have the blank stare on their face, what do you suggest? How can you help them?
I mean, that's the opportunity. And I'm not here to say that what executives are doing to coach and train their salespeople is not working. That's not the point behind this conversation.
Yeah.
The
No,
point,
of course.
the point is, I know they want to increase revenue. I know they want to increase profits. I know they do. However, their clients, their marketplace is changing. Their clients are changing. They're expecting more out of salespeople today than ever before, not less. And in a world, unfortunately, that doesn't view salespeople as being the most trustworthy people out there, if I'm an executive, I'm looking at how fast can my salespeople build trust? How fast can my salespeople connect and relate to our clients and our future clients? And this is what's interesting. This happens in the very first conversation that a salesperson has. And by the way, that conversation doesn't have to be face to face. That conversation could be phone. That conversation could be over email. That conversation can be over a message center in a social platform. That conversation can be on a social platform. It doesn't matter. Salespeople are either establishing or eroding trust the minute they open their mouth, put fingers to a keyboard, or phone to an ear. And as an executive, we got to be cognizant of this. And so I'm a big believer in coaching salespeople on how to establish trust, how to connect real fast by the words and the messaging that they use to get engaged with whoever they need to get engaged with based on whatever market sector they're calling into. And what I do is not rocket science. I'll share one more thing is because it's a commonality that we have still to this day. I don't know how copier works. I spent decades in the business. Don't care. What I cared about was the other person sitting in front of me. It wasn't, the copier was just a means to the end, right? It just happened to be the vehicle upon which I sold something to earn a living and to help somebody in a better place than they were before. But I knew that, and I'll use Mark, I'll just use you as an example since we're having this conversation. I just knew this, and I want people to really key in on this. I knew that if Mark was the executive sitting in front of me, the more comfortable I made Mark feel about me, the more comfortable he became about me. The more comfortable he became about me, the more Mark starts to open up and share what I call his business secrets. That does not happen with everybody because I've connected and related and I've made Mark feel comfortable.
And so let's keep pushing on that, Larry. That's super. This is gold. How do we do that today? So you talked about, hey, we might have the start of a relationship digitally, and your pal who gave you a wonderful testimonial for the book, Tim Hughes. We love Tim too. He's been on the show a couple times, and Adam and the gang over there. But you know, he talks a lot about leveraging things like LinkedIn, not as a sales platform per se, but just kind of like a digital cocktail party where you're both interested and interesting. If we have that face-to-face meeting, there's still people, coming in, thank goodness, for face-to-face meetings, first meetings. What do we do to prepare for that first meeting or that first Zoom call where maybe we're walking in to meet somebody more senior than us, and we're trying to introduce our company to theirs? How do we quickly build trust and credibility today?
Oh, this is gold. This is good stuff. I'm going to give you the complete polar opposite answer that probably what many would say.
Okay.
This is people skill, relationship skill. Think about this, and I'm a mindset guy, Mark. So I'm going to give you verbatim here in a second. But what I want people to think about as they're listening to what I'm saying and how Mark set this up is I want you to think about that first meeting, the first in meeting, right? You could be doing the dancing and all of that with email and engaging on social posts and sending them a message inside LinkedIn, right? Let's call that dancing, right? You're dancing to get to that very first meeting where they agree to agree. I don't care if it's face-to-face or it's on any virtual platform, Teams, Zoom, whatever. Doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Let's just call it in the world today. It's not face-to-face. Let's say it's all virtual, right? So
yes.
Mark agrees to have this virtual meeting with me, Larry, and we've been dancing around. We're connected and all of that. And we agree that, today's the magical day that I'm going to have that meeting. I can guarantee you this. Mark, as the executive, is probably thinking, though he may never say it, this call is going to go down like the other 5 that I've had this past week.
For sure. Yeah.
What's Larry going to say that's going to get me to think? Larry's probably going to say the exact same thing the other 5 salespeople said within the first 5 minutes. Mark my word, that's probably going through Mark's head. So what I would say is this is, and keep in mind, I believe this, the first couple minutes, you're either going to establish trust, you're going to erode trust. This is people skill, relationship skill building. I'd say something like
Please.
this, Mark, and I lay this on CEOs and presidents, and I'm just like, I just love watching their facial expressions. Mark, I'm super grateful for our time together here today. Thank you. It's been wonderful getting to know you. And I've been looking forward to this since we agreed to this meeting 2 weeks ago. Thank you. Silent pause. And then I lean in. And when I lean in, I say, Mark, tell me something good. What's been going on with Mark Cox lately? Talk to me. What's been going on? Pause. Mark will tell you something.
Yeah.
Hey, by the way, Mark, thanks for sharing.
Yeah.
Hey, before we get started, I'm just curious. This morning in my reading, I was reading a great book. I was reading Learn to Love Selling, right?
Thanks for the plug, Larry.
It's all good. I'm staring at it, Mark Cox. Beautiful setup. But serious, like, hey, I'm curious. You know, this morning I was just reading Learn to Love Selling. Great book. You know, in the first chapter of that book, this particular section stood out to me. The reason it stood out to me is ... Hey, Mark, how's this sit with you?
So Larry, here's the thing. I believe you, right? So you do, when you do that, I've had enough interaction with you in the last hour, and I'll mention one other thing, but you believe what you're saying. This isn't a sales pitch. You are that guy. So you'd have the same start to a conversation if you met your friend at church, or you met your friend having a beer after work, or whatever. It's just you.
Hey, 100%. I want to let everyone know something. Mark's in sales. I'm in sales. Y'all got to grow your business like we have to grow our business.
Yeah.
And I will tell you this. The things that I'm sharing, I use. I got to share a funny story. This is actually a very true story, as true gets. This is about 2 months ago, literally 2 months ago. I had this division president of a very large company I set up some time with. We were connected on LinkedIn, moved it off of LinkedIn to an agreeable time to connect. The agreeable time was a 30-minute Teams call. 30 minutes. Boom, I always launch my calls early, like 10 minutes early. I schedule it, I block it. In case something happens, I reboot, all of that. Just FYI, don't launch your calls 30 seconds before the time, because poo-poo might happen. And so my camera's on, he pops in, camera comes on, insert name. I am super grateful for our time together here today. I just wanted to say thank you. I've been looking forward to this conversation. Just wanted to let you know that. Insert name. Tell me what's been going on. 5 minutes later, he tells me what's been going on. Here's the hook on this, because I believe executives will test salespeople. This person goes, so tell me your backstory. Tell me your backstory. Now, most salespeople would fall for the hook, right? Tell me your backstory, Joe. And then Joe starts telling him how wonderful he is and all that. And I said, insert name. I said, that's not why we're here. I'd be more than happy to tell you my backstory. But quite frankly, you'd probably roll your eyes and tell me exactly what you probably tell most other people. I expected that. More importantly, this is about you. What's your story? Will you be willing to share? I never said anything for the next 20 minutes. That 30-minute initial conversation went an hour and 20 minutes.
Wow. You know, it first of all, awesome. And for those listening, I'm going to tell you, this is the guy Larry is. So I don't know if Larry remembers, but we were supposed to schedule this podcast about 3 weeks ago, 4 weeks ago. And something big came up for me with one of our clients, and I went upside down and backwards. And so I had to send Larry a note saying, listen, this has come up. I'm so sorry, boom, 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 boom. And think about how busy, Larry is, and he's scheduling these back to back, et cetera, et cetera. So rather than coming back and saying, hey, no problem, I'll just reschedule, et cetera, Larry sends me a note and goes, "Hey, Mark, is everything okay?" That was the note. Do you remember this,
Yeah, of
by the
course.
way?
I
Yeah.
remember as plain as day.
Yeah. So it wasn't anything about Larry, and it wasn't really anything about the podcast. It was, "Is everything okay?" And when I'd sent the note, I was kind of in this mental state where it wasn't really all okay. It wasn't okay. I was going, "Oh man, I got to get, I got to do a couple of things here and do some dancing." And so it sort of took a pause. And before I responded, and it was such a helpful question because the reality of it is this was not life changing what I was going through.
Yeah.
It's just something I had to work through. So
Yeah.
it was like and I thought, man, it's nice that somebody asked me that. And I came back and went, "You know what, Larry, it is okay. We love our clients. Something great came up. We got to jump on this one, but it's all good." But it was just such a nice way of getting nothing about you and your day and the impact on your schedule. It was a lot about, "Hey, are you okay?" And we hadn't even met.
Yeah.
And so I really like, there's this idea of the authenticity. I love your approach on that sales call, by the way. I'm such a fan of gratitude because gratitude helps me. Forget what it does for the rest of the world. I actually feel better when I'm grateful.
Yeah.
And your pal Anthony Iannarino wrote some great stuff about that in the Negativity Fast.
Uh-huh.
But the physical and mental manifestations of gratitude are shocking. It's like exercise. It's so good for you.
No, 100%. What we're talking about goes back to the two words. It's connect and relate.
Yeah.
I want to be able to connect to somebody. If I can connect, if I can start to relate, we start to form the basis of trust. And in a post-trust world, everyone's swimming for it. And when there's high levels of trust, I know what happens. Things speed up. When there's low levels of trust, things slow down. It just turns into a price war.
Yeah. Well. By the way, at some point, we're going to bring you back. We're going to talk again about this trust. I think there's a whole podcast on trust. But while we've got you this time, Larry, one of the things that really jumped out to me about the book was this clarity. And I think this is an opportunity for anyone listening today. You have existing clients. This idea of maintaining that relationship after the sale. And you talk a lot about, Larry, in the book, average salespeople only interact with an existing client when the client comes to them with a problem or there's another opportunity to sell something. So there are these very limited interactions, or they do the proverbial flyby, I'll just grab a cup of coffee. We see that a lot, or a lunch.
Yep.
Everybody out here has existing clients. What's the couple of things you might suggest? I think you talk about the three kind of keys to building a better relationship with your clients right now. Just a key takeaway people can leave with.
Oh, gee. I'm a massive believer in this, and I learned this through all my years doing what I was doing. Is I'm a fan of selling more to your existing customers and growing new business. And I knew this: the way I would increase my business was increase what I know about my customers. So, and this plays out both ways. The more that I started to know my customers' business, the more I grew with them. The more I started to build authentic relationships and bring some meaningful value, not just that salesperson who just stops by and goes, "Hey, you know what? I was in the neighborhood. I thought I'd stop by. Everything okay?"
Yeah.
You'll know where I'm going with this. Absolutely no value, right? But they go, "Man, I got great relationships with these people." I'm not going to doubt it, but I probably not, but you probably don't. I knew that the more I just want everyone to hear me out on this because it goes against the grain of it just goes against the total grain. The more frequently I spent inside my customers' offices, walking the halls, getting to know people, upper level management, mid level management, lower level management, the more I got a chance to meet people and shake hands and slap high fives, observe by watching, listening, meeting people, asking questions, the more I started to grow my business because I understood their business. And I found other things that I was capable of selling them to layer on top of that.
Yeah.
My new business grew through my existing customers by taking care of my existing customers. So, kind of like the bow on this is grow your business through your customers, not at the expense of your customers. And the
Yeah.
way you do that is by building genuine, authentic relationships, high, wide, and deep. And when I say this is you got to get to know these people personally and professionally. What makes them tick? What are their goals, dreams, aspirations? Where do they see themselves a year from now? What are they working on this quarter? What do they need to remove off their business plate? And how can I or somebody in my network help them do that?
Yeah.
The personal side is I want to know what makes these people tick outside of work. And then I want to help them grow their business. And if I can help them grow their business, I believe this: I've earned the right to have them help me grow mine
Yes.
by asking for referrals or by saying, you know what? These are 5 businesses I'm trying to go after right now. I got to grow my business just like you got to grow yours. Do any of these businesses ring a bell to you? Are you familiar with any of these?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that one. Tell me, what do you know about that business? People, it's not that hard to grow your business. But if you can agree you're in the people business and relationship building business, grow the people skills and relationship building skills with your current customers. Go high, wide, and deep, personally and professionally. Understand who's who inside the businesses you're working with. Get to know these people. They will help you grow your business, but you got to put forth the effort to help them grow their business.
So well said. And by the way, the nice thing about the book, gang, is it's also said very simply. I just find, you must have good editors, or you did a lot of passes on it. You had some great people who provided testimonials. We're big fans of Bernadette and Anthony and all the gang
Bernadette's
who
a dear
did.
friend of mine.
Yeah, they're all great. But on this front, let's also think about what we want to do with our lives. This is what I want to do with my life. This is what we do at In the Funnel Now. We do this because we want to. But I want to get to know people. I
Yeah.
like people. I want to help them run a better business. I don't want to be the fly-by sale, I'm gone,
Yeah.
all of that kind of stuff. I want to make sure that somebody who made a decision, to move forward with us, that we make them look very good for having made that decision. That's
Yeah.
our mission, is to
That's so
make sure
good.
that they become the hero for making that decision. And this is one that I find very interesting for the folks listening. I find this topic to be some of the lowest hanging fruit out there, where you just say, well, we've got an existing business. We've been doing it for years. We have a client base. Yeah, we know them well. But I think there's a difference between we know them and we've set up a sort of structure to have engagement or meetings with them where we go to a different level of conversation about them and their business
Yep.
when there isn't a deal on the table for us. And we call it like a health check,
Yep.
Larry. But I find with folks listening, if you've had these clients for years, you actually get a little complacent in your relationship. I might have a social relationship with them. I see them in hockey, et cetera. But I think they know us and they think I know them. But every once in a while, I like to try and trigger a different meeting where maybe a few different people come in a room and we have this conversation about, hey, how are we doing? So kind of like a QBR, but a lot. And then we get into, how are you doing?
Yep.
What's going on with your business? And I find, depending upon whether you sell into large enterprise or SMB, if you're selling to middle management, VPs in a large bank, they actually need to think about the answer to that question. You think they know what's in their 10K report and how they're progressing against key metrics and exactly how those things cascade down to their division and so on and so forth. They don't always. So if I go by for a coffee and go, hey, tell me how you guys are progressing against your CEO's top 3 strategic priorities, they actually don't have the answer.
Yep.
Sometimes, if you put in a little easy agenda and say, listen, I'd love to talk about this. Let's just find out what's new with you guys and how you're doing against the strategic priorities. They actually prepare for it.
Yeah. No, this is what's interesting. I'll throw everyone a challenge. Can I throw everyone a challenge before we wrap?
Absolutely.
So and it plays on what Mark just said. Here's what I want everyone to think about. Follow along with me on this one. I want everyone who's listening or watching to focus in on their single best customer.
Nice.
However they choose to define that. I'm going to leave that one all up to you. So I want y'all to visually think about your very best customer. This will be the one that if you're having a bad day, you had a bad call, you're picking up the phone because you want to hear their voice because it's going to put a smile on your face. If you all believe you're in the people business and relationship building business, I hope this gives you a gut check moment in a very positive way. I want you to think of that customer. This is the one, if you lost, it would hurt. I want you to think about the following. How many people inside that organization do you know? And how many of them know you? What do you know about them personally and professionally and vice versa? How many people at upper level, mid-level, lower level management do you know? And you're all going to be telling me, Larry, don't worry about it. I got great relationships with these people. Okay. What do you really know about these people? Now here's the gut check moment. What are their goals, initiatives, and challenges over the next 90 days at said levels, upper level, mid-level, lower level management? If you cannot answer that question on your single best customer, that client, customer, however you all want to refer to it, is vulnerable. I want everyone I hope this inspires y'all to think a little bit different. But you're in the people business and relationship building business. I trust you should know this. I trust you know this. Just in case that's your homework. Isolate your single best customer. Go 5 or 6 people deep. What do I really know about these people and what do they know about me? And then do I understand their goals, initiatives, and challenges over the next 90 days? And if you don't, that's your homework. And if you do, you get a pass on this.
By the way, if you do, go to the next one.
Go to the next one.
Yeah, go to the second one. By the way, I'm thinking about that.
Yeah.
So what a great universal tip for everybody. And Larry, what a pleasure meeting you today.
Oh, thank you. It's my as well.
Just a real joy to read Selling from the Heart. And by the way, let us know a little bit, how do people who are listening to this podcast who want to learn more about you and actually want to sort of engage you, how do they do it?
I'm not too hard to find. You can find me all over LinkedIn. Very simple. Just Larry Levine, Levine, but my LinkedIn name's Larry Levine 1992. You can find me all over the place. Just go to sellingfromtheheart.net. It's the easiest place. You can find what we're up to. It gives you links to things I've written. It gives you links to the Selling from the Heart podcast. Just go to the simplest way, go to sellingfromtheheart.net.
Fantastic. And team, that link will be in the show notes for today. Selling from the Heart, you want to pick that up from Amazon today. We also want to pick up Selling in a Post-Trust World. These are great reads, fun reads, enjoyable reads. So pick these ones up. You know that we actually read the books usually first and then go after the podcast guest. What a real treat to have you on the show today. Larry, thanks again for joining us.
It's my pleasure. Good seeing you, Mark.
And team, thank you so much for joining the Selling Well podcast. As you know, we run this podcast because we're trying to improve the performance and professionalism of B2B sales, because in doing so, we believe we're actually improving the lives of professional salespeople. So we appreciate you listening today. If you enjoyed the podcast, please like and subscribe to the podcast, because that's actually how we get great guests like Larry. We also love constructive feedback. So if there's other things we can be doing on the podcast that you'd see value in, please let me know. I'm Mark Cox at inthefunnel.com. Mark Cox at inthefunnel.com. That's my personal email. And I actually respond to every bit of constructive feedback we get. We love constructive feedback. So thanks for sending it in. We'll see everybody next time on the Selling Well podcast. And thanks so much for joining.